This is a nuclear power plant.
A destroyed one.
And being here, the moment it blew up, meant death. A slow, terrifying death.
And not because of the fire, not because of the explosion. It was the radioactive dust hanging in the air. Imagine this. People had no idea that the biggest radiation release in human history had just happened. Firefighters were sent here to put out a regular fire. They didn't know. No one knew.
Yeah, and the town nearby wasn't evacuated for almost 2 days. People still went to work, kids went to school, and the plant was only about 3 kilometers away. 3 kilometers. That's insanely close to a deadly radiation source.
The levels were so high that Geiger counters were screaming, like they were about to break. This is what a Geiger counter looks like. And this is how it sounds. But most people didn't even have one. And the ones that did, their devices simply died. The radiation was way beyond what they were built for.
Only after 2 days did they finally start evacuating people. And even then, the truth was still hidden. They said, "You'll be gone for 3 to 7 days." So people packed almost nothing. Some documents, a few photos. They truly believed they were coming back.
But they never came back, ever. Thousands of people left their homes, their apartments, and their animals. That's the part that hurts the most. Every animal was contaminated, every single one. Cats, dogs, cows, pets waiting at home. So they were all... I'm sorry, it's hard to even talk about this.
I know. It breaks my heart to think about the animals, but we should explain what actually happened that night. April 26, 1986. Most of you watching weren't even born then. Neither were we.
Yeah.
At 1:23 a.m., the explosion happened. Reactor number 4 blew apart. The roof went with it. That night, everyone kept saying the same thing. The roof is on fire. So firefighters rushed here, thinking they were putting out a simple roof fire. They had no idea that the reactor underneath them was wide open to the sky. When it blew, a massive cloud of radioactive particles shot into the air. Iodine, cesium, graphite from the core, death in the form of dust.
And in 1986, firefighters had no real protection, no proper suits, no respirators, nothing. Just open faces, thin gloves, basic uniforms. They came here, as they were, trying to stop the flames, but the radiation levels were thousands of times higher than anything they were prepared for. Many of them would be dead within weeks.
And remember, people were still living here for almost 2 more days. The radiation was already lethal, and the town was only 3 kilometers away. It's unbelievable. People went to work, and in the evenings, some gathered on a bridge to watch the fire from a distance. They spent their nights there, thinking the glow looked beautiful.
And that bridge later became known as the Bridge of Death. No one who stood there watching the burning reactor survived.
Down below, right on the ground around the plant, there were pieces of something no one had ever seen before. Black chunks everywhere, like pieces of coal, like burnt concrete. But they weren't. They were graphite from the core of reactor number 4.
The firefighters didn't know. No one told them the reactor had exploded. Some of them picked the pieces up with their bare hands, just to clear a path. One touch, just one. And in that moment, just a few seconds, their bodies absorbed a fatal dose, a dose no human could survive.
Some of them felt it instantly, a sharp, metallic taste, filling their mouths. That's one of the first signs of extreme radiation exposure.
But they didn't understand what was happening to them. They kept fighting the fire, not knowing death was already inside their bodies.
And while the fire raged outside, something even worse was happening inside the hospital in Pripyat.
The first firefighters were brought in that same night. Their faces were burnt red, their hands swollen. No one knew why, not even the doctors.
They tried treating them like burn victims. Cold towels, bandages, painkillers. But nothing helped because these weren't burns. They had no idea what they were dealing with.
Some of the firefighters were already vomiting. Their uniforms were so radioactive that nurses had to take them off with bare hands and throw them into the basement. Those clothes are still radioactive today.
The doctors kept asking, what happened? What exactly were they fighting? But the answer they got was, just a fire, nothing else. No one told them that Reactor 4 was gone. Gone completely.
And because of that lie, dozens of people, nurses, medics, drivers, were exposed without any protection. They didn't even know they were standing in a deadly radiation field.
And while this was happening, more radioactive dust kept drifting over the city, covering streets, cars, playgrounds, balconies, everything. And people were still outside, still living their normal lives.
And the strangest part? There was no smell, no color, no warning. People walked under the falling dust like it was nothing.
Some parents even took their kids closer to the windows to watch the beautiful glow over the plant. They didn't know they were watching a radioactive cloud.
And in the hospitals, more firefighters kept arriving, some barely walking, some shaking. One of them looked at his hands and whispered, "Why are they burning? There was no fire on me." No doctor had the answer. More crews kept coming. Engineers, soldiers, plant workers. Some volunteered. None of them were told the truth.
Then came the helicopters. They flew straight over the open reactor, right through the radioactive plume, dropping sand, boron, lead, and clay into the burning core. The pilots had no shielding, no protection. Each flight was another lethal dose.
But someone had to stop the fire. If the molten core burned deep enough to reach groundwater, the explosion would have been far worse. Worse than anything the world had ever seen.
So they kept flying, again and again. Some pilots became sick the very same day.
Headaches, burning skin. They knew every mission could be their last.
And while the helicopters fought the burning reactor, the city of Pripyat was finally told to evacuate. It was already April 27th, almost 2 days after the explosion.
50,000 people were evacuated that day. An entire city gone. Pripyat stood empty. Only workers, soldiers, and volunteers remained behind. And the roof, the shattered roof, was still burning. If you think the worst part was already over, you're wrong. The most dangerous phase hadn't even started yet. Soon, men would be sent onto that roof for just seconds at a time. Seconds, because anything longer meant death.
Just seconds. That's all a human body could endure. And by the next morning, the truth was becoming impossible to hide. Radiation monitors in another country, in Sweden, suddenly went off the charts. Workers there thought their plant was leaking, but it wasn't.
The radiation had traveled hundreds of kilometers from here, from Chernobyl. That's how the world found out. Not from the people who caused it, but from a nuclear plant in another country ringing an alarm.
Only then did the Soviet Union finally admit that something had happened. But even then, they didn't tell the full truth.
They said it was under control. They said the situation was stable, but outside, the sky carried millions of particles of radioactive dust, and the fire was still burning. 10 days.
10 days? That's unimaginable. But even with the fire finally out, that was only the beginning. The reactor was still open, still spitting radiation into the sky. And the roof, the same roof that burned, was covered with pieces of graphite.
Graphite from the core, from the heart of Reactor 4, not rubble, not debris. Fragments so radioactive that standing near them for a single minute could be fatal. Blown out by the explosion and scattered across the roofs of the plant.
And those fragments had to be removed, because as long as the roofs were covered in highly radioactive graphite, no one could build the sarcophagus. Not workers, not machines, not even robots.
The sarcophagus was a giant concrete shell, a massive barrier meant to seal the destroyed reactor from the world. Without it, radiation would keep leaking into the air every single day.
Robots sent from Germany were the first attempt, but they lasted only minutes. Their circuits burned out instantly under the radiation. So the task fell to people, real people. They called them biorobots.
Men sent onto the roof for just seconds, literally seconds, to grab a chunk of graphite and throw it over the edge into the reactor hall below. One wrong step, one extra second, and the dose was lethal.
Each man was allowed only one run, one sprint across a roof that measured radiation in the millions of microsieverts.
They were guided by shouted commands. Go, throw, back.
It's almost impossible to imagine what that felt like. And actually, there's something we haven't even mentioned yet. Something huge. The forest, the one right next to the plant. It changed color almost immediately. The trees turned red, not from fire, not from heat, but from radiation.
Later, that place would be called the Red Forest, one of the most radioactive spots on the entire planet. An entire forest killed in a single day.
And all of this, all of it, while people in Pripyat were still packing small bags, getting on buses, believing they'd be back in just a few days.
A new wave of people began to arrive, not residents, not families, but workers.
They were called liquidators, hundreds of thousands of them. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, firefighters, construction crews, people from every corner of the Soviet Union. Most didn't volunteer. They were sent.
Their mission was to clean a place that couldn't be cleaned, to scrape radioactive soil, wash buildings, bury contaminated machinery and vehicles, remove whole layers of earth, to fight something they couldn't see.
And while that was happening above, beneath the ground, another battle was unfolding. The miners, hundreds of them.
Their mission was terrifying. They had to dig a tunnel directly under the reactor, because if the molten core melted through the concrete and reached groundwater, the resulting steam explosion could have been catastrophic for all of Europe.
So they dug, in suffocating heat, in choking dust, with almost no ventilation. Some worked shirtless. The temperature underground reached 50 degrees Celsius.
They were told it was just precaution, but the truth was, they were buying time for an entire continent.
And above all this, the final task remained, building the sarcophagus, the giant concrete shell that would seal the destroyed reactor.
To build it, thousands of workers operated cranes, mixed concrete, installed steel beams, all while being hit by invisible radiation. Some could only work for minutes at a time.
Piece by piece, over long months, they built it. A structure the size of a cathedral.
Not to protect the reactor, but to protect the world from the reactor.
Chernobyl changed everything. Nuclear regulations, international monitoring, emergency protocols.
And it showed how one mistake can echo for centuries.
And how ordinary people, workers, soldiers, miners, were the ones who stopped the worst nuclear disaster in human history. If this video meant something to you,
You might want to stay,
we tell stories like this here,
so you can subscribe.
only if you want to.